chemo that actually starts to make these physiological processes change when you're getting the treatment. Then came Elizabeth Ehrlich out of Yale, a molecular physiologist who's actually studying what happens on a cellular level when people are getting chemo. So I'm going to throw out some terms for those of you who do a lot of reading in oncology and in neurology in particular. These things might be familiar to you. For the rest of us, I'm going to go ahead and kind of walk you through it as best I can. This is not my specialization. I am not a physiologist, but I know enough about it that I can sometimes give people a general idea of what these guys are talking about. The first mechanism that Barbara Ehrlich found was that when people are getting chemo, they do not experience as much. They have lost some of the neurogenesis that normally occurs in people. That is the growth of new brain cells. In general, growing new brain cells creates more problems than benefits. That's one of the things that is, that's something that is the evolutionary physiologists have talked a lot about. They say that we generally have limited space in our brains. That's one of the reasons why, or in our skulls, that's one of the reasons why brain tumors can be particularly problematic. But there are some structures in the brain that do grow new cells as part of normal development, especially in the temporal lobe. Interestingly, another area where you grow new brain cells throughout, or new neural cells throughout your whole life is in the olfactory system. And it's supposed to improve your sense of smell. There are structures in each brain cell, a neuron, called spines and dendrites. Those are things that are at the synapse, at the junction where two brain cells meet and one is transmitting information to the other. If the dendrites actually have little branches that come off them, if someone is, if they start to lose some of the branches off those little dendrites, it can impede transmission of information from one neuron to the next. Another thing that's happens, and that happens in chemo. One of the other things that happens in chemo is that there are certain neurotransmitters, the chemicals that are transmitted from one neuron to the next, that get depleted. Last, there are structures in the nervous system called the glial cells. These are not ones that are involved in actual transmission of information. They actually hold things together and perform other kinds of housekeeping responsibilities that you need to keep your body running. And if they are not functioning correctly, that will also result in new symptoms. The last change that Dr. Ehrlich found was an inflammatory response, that there are certain forms of chemo that trigger inflammation the same way that certain kinds of illnesses cause inflammation, which in some cases helps you fight an illness, in other cases it becomes a problem in itself. There is some structures in the body called the blood-brain barrier. Every blood vessel that is in the brain has a layer of cells that we call the endothelial cells that prevent large chemicals from traveling from the bloodstream into the brain itself. That blood-brain barrier is one of the best things that protects us from different toxins that are in the system that might get into your system. If you have an illness, or in this case, a medication that breaks down that barrier, then other kinds of toxins can get into the brain and cause you to feel pretty foggy. So those were some of the proposals that Dr. Ehrlich found, presented, that she thought might explain why people, when they're on chemo, they don't feel quite right. Now, having given you that great big long explanation, it's time for you to weigh in.
All right. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about, when we're talking about some of this chemo brain or fog, break down what that really is. What do people feel? What are you experiencing? How does it affect your day-to-day? Because that's the most important. Then, what can we do to compensate? What do we know works that you can do that are hopefully simple, effective, and repeatable? Then lastly, I want to get into other things we can do beyond, the compensatory strategies. What other things can we do for optimal brain health and to be able to be the most engaged in our lives. Because ultimately, that's what people want to do. Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about the following terms, and I will go through them in different ways. This is just terminology. What your experience is unique to you, but the idea here is just to be able to put some more common vocabulary to what patients and what individuals tend to discuss. Okay, first is working memory. Okay, that idea that it's hard to hold on to information. Okay, if you are hearing a doctor, a server at a restaurant give you information, and boy, I have no idea what they just said. I heard it, I heard the words, but I really had a hard time holding on to it. Okay, it's not a hearing issue, but that ability to take information and not have it go in one ear and out the other, to be able to hold it. I'm seeing some nods. Okay, memory for new information, which is a little bit different. A lot of people say, oh, I have a great memory. I can tell you, my third grade teacher back in grammar school, my memory is great. I know your birthday, we're good. A lot of times memory for long-term information actually stays pretty good. It's a different highway, different pathway. Long-term memory typically stays pretty well intact. However, remembering new information, being able to then summarize after maybe a doctor appointment, maybe summarizing the plot of a movie, maybe summarizing, you might need to hear things more than one time. Being able to chunk information or hear things in shorter amounts may also be more beneficial. And lastly, executive functioning. And I'm going to spend more time later on talking about this. This is a big term for basically what we have to do in tasks every day. To get here to this room, to operate the computer, to participate, you had to know the steps to log on. Word finding is up there too. So word finding is a little bit different. My background in speech pathology is that language is a little bit more separate in the left side of the brain. I won't go into too much of that unless, of course, you want me to, and I can give you lots of information about that. But certainly that I know what I want to say, but I have a hard time getting a word out and seeing a lot of nods. Yes, it's common. It's part of this kind of profile of what we're seeing. And there are a lot of compensatory strategies that I'm going to talk about that. Sure, no problem. And there's actually a handout in there in slides as well. So what are we going to do? We're going to talk, build awareness to this, and then really now focus on what we do about it with compensatory strategies. Okay, so we talked a little bit more about working memory. The examples here are, remembering somebody's email address, asking for directions somewhere, learning someone's name and holding on to it. And my hope is that you're thinking, well, I could just write it down, or I could use my phone, or I could repeat it back. And that's what we have to do. I think the idea that you're just going to hear something once and be able to hold on to it and use it again typically is not reliable. Right? We have to do something with it. Dr. Larson and I got into a great conversation just before this about the use of phones. And even when we did this talk a few years ago, the use of phones was occasional. Now, everyone's using phones all the time. And so using them to help with recalling phone numbers, dates, times of appointments, pizza orders, whatever it is that's important for you to remember, that kind of compensatory work with a phone, simple, effective, and very, very utilitarian. It's with you, okay? What I want to do is I want to do something that shows visual working memory. So Dr. Larson and I found a slide that I'm going to show you some visual images, okay? And this is just going to take a look at how your brain is able to hold on to them, okay? So, all right. Please take a look at this slide. What I want you to do is look at these figures, and I'm going to see if you can remember them and the order that they are in just a moment. Okay? Got it? Okay. Now, what I want to see is, can you tell me each visual image has a letter underneath it? Can anyone here tell me which one was the first one that was in the sequence? F. Good. What was the next one?
C.
C, good. What was the next one?
E.
E, good. And finally?
G.
G.
Wow, I didn't even do that.
Okay, now you did a great job. Okay, I should have chosen a harder slide. Okay, okay, so now let's use a little bit of trying to encode this, try to hold on to this with some use of strategies, okay? So I'm gonna say that our first one looks like a pie or a pizza. Second one, I'm associating it with a picnic bench, probably with a little ant or spider on it. Then a snake that's moving quickly, and then half of a capsule, okay? So by talking about it and now seeing them a second time, okay, now see if you can do it again for the first, second, third, and fourth image. Okay, what was the first one again that was there? F,
C.
C, E,
G.
good, good, nice job. So, while no one is going to just give you a bunch of symbols like this to look at and encode, what I want you to take from this is by not just looking at the image by itself, but connecting it to information you already have in your brain and talking about it and repeating it, not just looking at it one time, but a second time. There are implications for this for map reading, for being able to even make choices on a website, on a menu. So there's lots of that idea of being able to not just see it, but make some connections, actively connecting things in your brain to what you already know. And then pairing, it's additional, if you can pair words, so what you're hearing and seeing, using that together is very beneficial. Okay. Okay, so memory. I hear often, I have a hard time with my memory. So, as we said, recent memory. Oh, where did I put my keys? Oh, I don't know where I put them. That's really, really frustrating. Oh, I met that doctor before. What is his name? I'm not sure. Okay, gosh, what did I have for dinner last night? I know I ate something, I don't remember. Okay, being able to remember things. We can't remember everything. Our brain also tends to hold on to the high highs, the low lows. So if you got food poisoning from dinner last night, you'd remember it, right? If it was the best meal of your life, you'd probably remember it. But if you had an average slab of meatloaf that didn't do much for you, you may not remember it, okay? So for the stuff in between, so for the things that, you know, if it's meaningful to you, if a family member did something great, a big life event happens, you're not gonna have to do a lot to remember that. But for the stuff in between, the details, okay? What time did I make that hair appointment? Who was that person? For all of those things, we do need to take an extra step and write it down. You do need to repeat it back to yourself. You do need to do something active in your brain so that your brain can better hold on to it, okay? Ideally, then going back another time and reviewing it. What I tell people is if you can, for the notes that you take, whether in a notebook or in your phone, then review them and then go back. Can I visualize? Okay, if I wrote down that was Dr. Smith, now can I picture him? Okay, how was he part of my care? Who was that person? And obviously, through our day, there's much that does not need to be remembered, right? So a lot we can slough off. Our brain can't hold on to everything. But for the important things, it's being able to make those judgments on what do I need to remember, and if it is important, to do those extra things to help encoding. The three parts of memory are that encoding or getting information in, being able to store it, okay, and how we store information is, that storage component is very active. We have to store it in a way, we have things in our brain where they are related together. So we don't remember things in isolation. Things go together. So my name being Laura, if you grew up with a Laura, if you know a Laura, if you knew it, like anything, we make these associations, we connect things, we store things, and then eventually we have to retrieve it and how we retrieve it. So that whole loop is what we're always working on. All right, so this acronym of WRAP, W-R-A-P, is common in the therapy world for what to do. You're nodding. Have you seen this before?
I feel like I'm back in my speech and language therapy.
So the reason why we use this acronym of write, repeat, associate, and picture is because they work. So writing things down, pretty self-explanatory. Get a good calendar, write notes, use Post-its. I'm a big proponent of $20 at Office Max to get some good memory devices that you can have in a common place in your house. But also, again, using your phone is incredibly convenient. If writing is difficult, have that partner, somebody in your life that can write for you. As a therapist, I take a lot of notes for patients if writing is difficult. Repetition, okay? This strategy is so important. Being able to repeat back what it is that you heard. So the details. Okay, so I need to be back at the clinic next Tuesday with my insurance card. Okay, so if I show up on Monday or Wednesday, I'm out of luck. But Tuesday, if I have to be back in the clinic with my insurance card, a lot of times medical providers can be off to their next patient. They've got things going on in their head. When they're providing information, it might be, not trying to throw anyone under a bus, maybe not the clearest. Maybe you didn't get the clearest explanation of what the next step is. That repeating it back, what I'm hearing you say, doctor, what I'm hearing you say, sister, anyone, can be very helpful to get the clarity and to make sure your brain is getting the correct information and then writing it down. Making associations, our brain loves things in a group. We don't like things in isolation. So anytime we can associate things, it's very, very helpful, grouping things together. And lastly, visualizing. Visualizing. I was trying to visualize on my way here at this building. I knew the Lifetime Fitness used to be here. I could not picture this at all. Our visual memory, though, what we can do, we can picture in our mind, is incredibly strong. So using that idea of, okay, I can picture, okay, what that medication is. I can picture who this person is, and using that visual memory, it is a strong device. Okay, so hearing information, just hearing me talk, it's probably okay. But hearing me talk and having the slides, better. Now you've got two modes of information coming in, okay? So hearing me, seeing it, and then hopefully for things that are, anything that stands out or anything helpful, you would highlight and be able to hold on to. So getting two different forms of input is better than one. Asking for anything in writing from your providers, asking for repetition, but really I love having patients get things in writing as much as possible, just to make sure there's no ambiguity. Okay, I like memory is better with two inputs. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna do a little bit of exercise here using memory. I'm gonna read to you 16 words, okay? I'm gonna see how many of them you're able to remember. Then, after that, we're gonna do some things with some memory strategies, and I'm gonna see if it actually improves memory, okay?
Don't write it down.
Not as I'm saying them, so wait till I'm done, please. I'm watching, okay? All right, so are you ready? Okay, so for those that are not physically here, if you can grab a piece of paper and a pen, I'm going to be reading 16 words, okay? Just listen, and then you'll write them down. Here we go. Cat, rocker, red, pencil, yellow, monkey, scissors, sofa, chair, paper, horse, gray, violet, deer, bench, envelope. Okay, write down as many as you can, please. Just another minute. All right. Now, does anyone want to be a brave volunteer? Just tell me how many you got, and you don't have to, but 6, nice.
I know I have 4.
4, okay,
Yes.
I think 8, but.
okay.
See if I think of
Sure.
you didn't say
You got 8 online here?
Okay.
That's 7.
it.
How many did you get, sir? 7, okay, good. Now, oh, good. 13.
Wow.
Nice, nice. Okay, now what I'm gonna have you do is, okay, I'm gonna tell you that these words go into 4 categories, and I'm gonna tell you the
I
categories.
know that.
You've already done it?
I know what it is.
No, go ahead. What are the?
Office supplies, colors, animals, and furniture.
Wow, nice. Okay, so it's true. Just so everyone heard, office supplies, furniture, animals, and colors. So now that we know that, okay, listen one more time. Okay, and then let's see how many you're able to retrieve. Okay, so don't write down the words, just see if you can remember them. Bonus if you can visualize them as I say them. Here we go. Cat, rocker, red, pencil, yellow, monkey, scissors, sofa, chair, paper, horse, gray, violet, deer, bench, envelope. Okay, so try to write as many as you can down now in those 4 categories, please. Okay? All right. Overall, do you think you did better the second time? Do you think so? Does anyone feel like they did about the same? You did better? Okay, what do you think helped? Do you think it was more the repetition? Do you think it was kind of having the categories and being able to group things, or what do you think it
I
was?
think it was the association with the grouping that helped me.
The categories.
Yeah,
Definitely, because I went office, okay, which one's for the office? That's, you know.
Because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so,
One of the things too, I think, that helped me is, like you said, red, yellow. Those are my favorite colors.
see?
So, that just pulled out right away.
Perfect, good.
One of the things that was helping me, given a few more seconds, was the fact that you said 16, there were 4 groups, I had 4 items in each group.
Look at
I
that.
did this, yeah, the same thing.
So that's what I was doing.
Yes. So giving that little bit more structure, right?
Yeah.
Giving those parameters really helped your recall. Different to your brain. All we did was do strategies to help the memory, okay? So someone's gonna come up to you and give you 16 words on the street, right? There are functional applications with this, right? We can hear things a second time. We can group things together that go together. Were there any questions in the chat?
No, I was just kind of relaying how everybody was responding. in the
Okay.
room. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so the things I really want you to take back from this are that repeat back strategy. So I do this all the time, even coming here. Okay, so we've got to be here at 3 o'clock, we're to be in this room, and that's really because things get messed up in the details. And to be here at the wrong time or be here in the wrong building would really, really set things off in a bad way. So oftentimes, repeating back of those details is so important. Something that I really became more aware of, specific to chemotherapy, is be aware of when your best times of the day or week are. When you know that after a treatment, perhaps 2 days after, for my close friend going through it right now, 2 days after, she has to have, we're kind of all working with childcare to help her. That's when she's like, I don't have the energy to be fully present. But the day before her next treatment, she's got a ton of energy. So that's when she's in the office for a full day of work. That's when we're meeting up for play dates, etc. So the point is I'm saying this, everyone's body, everyone's is going to be in a different situation. But knowing your situation, how you feel, try if you can to schedule the more cognitively demanding tasks that you have to do. Maybe it's a conversation on finances. Maybe it's talking with, maybe it's a hard conversation, but scheduling those when you know you're going to be your best and not when you're like, oh, I'm dragging that day. Don't do it. So it sounds like a simple concept, but knowing yourself, schedule around it. Okay? Okay, using your phone, not just for the note feature, take pictures of things, for visual landmarks. If getting into a building, you remember, okay, there's a picture of a blue butterfly when I get in here, or I want to take a picture of this was really impactful to me. Use that for not just notes, but for the visual images. Okay. Okay. On attention, this slide is very busy, but what I want to talk about with attention is that as humans, we get easily distracted. Okay? In order to remember things, we really have to be able to be present and attentive. So right now, if you're hungry, or if you're stressed out that maybe you parked in the wrong spot, or if there's something, you are probably internally distracted. What I'm saying to you probably is not getting it because you're distracted, okay? We have external distractions. The light started flickering here. That would be what we're paying attention to. So be aware of your internal and external distractibility when you're trying to remember things, when you're trying to engage in cognitive tasks. Okay, executive functioning is, as I mentioned, it's kind of the planning, organizing, doing, revision, redoing of our day-to-day tasks. It requires so many things, all listed above, okay? When you're doing a complex task, check in with yourself and double check, okay, did I, if I'm planning a weekend away, did I figure out, okay, did I budget for the money to get to point A to point B? Did I double check that I have nothing going on those days so I can be gone for 3 days away? So for each part where before you may have just gone through and done something and assumed that all the details were going to work out, my advice is just to go back and make sure that each part of the task almost gets a mental check mark before moving on. So I'm going to keep going just in the interest of time. I want to move to the next slide because these are all apps that are very helpful that have been used by patients for executive functioning with high praise. So these are ones that you can try out. All of them have some kind of trial before you would have to buy it. See if any of them work for you, just for organization. Okay. The next couple of slides are cognitive apps that are not just for executive functioning, but these are things to engage cognition. This is for working on memory. This is for attention. So I have this, again, a little bit of a busy slide, but it's what it is, what it addresses, and know that all of these have been vetted by individuals that I've worked with who've said, yes, I really enjoyed working on this app. So these are more where the first slide was more, here are ways I could compensate. Here are things to help me with my executive functioning. These are ways to work on a variety of cognitive skills, all from your phone. I just want to highlight this app called Constant Therapy. This is one that we use often in speech therapy. It's one that might be, if you use it, it might look like it's framed for a therapist. The exercises are quite good. but just know if it looks like it's speaking to a therapist, the tone might be a little bit different on that one, but a very good app. Okay, I want to briefly talk about word finding, okay? Let me get to my slide. All right. It is so frustrating to know what you want to say and not be able to get the word out. Things that we know work are giving what you can through total communication, okay? Through gesture, through facial expressions, through descriptions, through use of synonyms when you can, antonyms when you can, okay? If you still are unable to get the word, not just say, ugh, to heck with it, I'm done, but being able to kind of navigate around it, okay, to say, all right, if I can't get the word, and I'm not, so if I couldn't figure out in the moment a word like screwdriver, okay, by doing a gesture, by telling where it's located, I know it's in the closet, I know it's in the yellow toolbox, you know, that thing, you twist it, you know, you use it, I need it to get this up there. Now, the more description, the more function, the more gesture I'm doing, hopefully, if it's someone I've communicated with before, hopefully they'd be able to help guide me to that word. This doesn't work all the time. When communication breaks down, it is very frustrating. When you're tired, and it's an emotional topic, and you're frustrated, it's even worse. I will say that the English language is very good in the sense that we do have a lot of words that are effective synonyms. That it may not be the exact word you're looking for, but a word that has enough meaning to deliver what your intended message is to your listener. On that, I do think that a good strategy can be writing things down. Sometimes looking at someone right in the face, you're trying to come up with the word, it can be very, very difficult. Everybody, but it can be helpful. Yes?
I found you're taking 3 deep breaths.
Yes.
Just 3 deep, just like.
You're feeling tense, and if you do, being able to breathe, there's a physiological reason why that is so effective. So thank you.
Just relaying,
Okay,
that's great.
okay.
I wanted them to know because it's a great strategy.
It's a
to
great
reset.
strategy.
Mhm.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about what we've learned since we've been here last, because there's really some cool stuff that's out there that's currently being researched. So what we learned is that, and nothing is a slam dunk, but these are things that may help, and I want to stress that, okay? What we're learning, there's more studies out that physical activity can really help with the minimizing, or reducing, I should say, of the effects of chemo brain. So the idea of consistent and moderate exercise to increase cerebral blood flow can be very impactful. There's a study, this was mostly studied, but there's more research being done on this. We do this on larger groups. Additionally, the same reason of being able to improve that, reduce some of the inflammatory effects that Dr. Larson mentioned. How chemotherapy can cause that inflammation, and some of these exercises can cause reduced inflammation. Okay? Diet is also now talked about more. That now diets with higher fruits and vegetables are correlated with better executive functioning and better verbal skills. That's great. Also, just today, on the Northwestern website, which I read, there were recommendations for foods with omega-3 fatty acids for brain health. Not it saying you have to eat exactly to reduce sugar. So included on here are fish and seafood, flax seeds, soybeans, chia seeds, walnuts, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. And I'm happy to share the link for this article. I didn't have time to put it in the slides, it was just out today, but I can share the link with Ashley, and so she can send it out, because under each food item, it talks a little bit about the brain health benefits. Okay? Ongoing things that are actionable, things we can really do that we're learning very helpful here are keeping your brain active, finding something that brings you joy, that you enjoy being a part of, and be engaged with it to a degree where your brain is very active. So if it's something where you are really thinking the Olympics are going to be cool, okay, so instead of just passively watching the Olympics, let's try to figure out, okay, what are maybe the new sports this year? And I'm just thinking about something topical, okay? What's going on with some of the people that we know have been past Olympic athletes that maybe you were into? So taking it not from just an item that maybe is enjoyable passively, but making it more active. Something that you are good at. If you are good at cooking, being able to maybe try some new recipes. If you're good at a sport, an art, anything like that. The idea is that brain engagement, especially to it where you have to work, where it's not just easy for you, you're working and learning with it, there is benefit to that for your brain. And acupuncture, also something now that looks like may actually help the myelin, which is what helps the neurons connect faster and better. That acupuncture may be a good accompaniment to treatment. I personally talked to a neurologist about this, and he said he thinks everyone should be getting acupuncture, that there are so many health benefits. He just said he needs insurance to cover it. That's what he said. Okay, finally, sleep hygiene. All of this is better when we're sleeping. So if you're not sleeping and you don't have a good sleep-wake routine going, which I know is very, it's common while undergoing chemotherapy, there were some studies talking a little bit about the role of melatonin to try to improve sleep hygiene which then helps with cognition. So those are things that were out, and I did cite the journal where I got all of this information because I thought it was just kind of exciting, and I look forward to, in years to come, if we get invited back, to see what studies that are published we can add to our knowledge base. Thank you.
All right, so some of you may be very curious to see what the results of this survey are. Can we bring up the results?
Give me one moment. So I can't bring it up on that screen. I can bring it up over here though. Oh, maybe I can.
Yeah.
Look at
There
that.
it is.
All right, awesome.
Responses, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit.
Yeah, give me one.
The first slide refers to the extent to which people have noticed changes in general, whether or not whether they feel like
Yeah, there we go.
their mind is as sharp. Very much, nobody feels like their mind is as sharp as it used to be. Just about everybody has some extent where they feel in general that things are they're not in general as sharp as they used to be. That's cognition as a whole, as Laura was talking about. Now we're going to look at the specific domains that have been affected. So the next item looks at memory, and you can see how many people have a perfect memory. It's been as good as usual, very much. Nobody. Most people feel that it's been somewhat affected. But the next thing that we want to look at is processing speed. How fast can you get the correct answer? Does it take a little bit longer? And how many people find that their thinking is as fast as usual? Very much? Nobody. Most people have noticed some amount of slowing that's going on. Next slide, or next question. In addition to processing speed, we're looking at keeping track of things when you're interrupted. We were talking a little bit about how if the lights start flickering, it's going to be very hard for you to pay attention to what it is that I'm talking about. And it says that some people are doing okay with that, maybe because they have access to some of the compensatory strategies that Laura was talking about. Jotting things down, putting it in your phone, so you're able to function just as well as ever. The next one down is concentration, ability to attend to focus on things. Nobody is saying that they're very much able to concentrate. Everybody has noticed some amount of change. The last two are not really cognitive domains, but I think they're very interesting when people talk about not only what are they able to do, but how hard do you got to work to make things happen. That's the place where sometimes people notice a big change after they started on chemo. Just about everybody says that to some extent, it does take a lot more effort to just be able to think clearly. And then last, I think we got two more. We're looking at paying attention, keeping track of what you're doing, kind of the executive function things that Laura was talking about, requires extra effort, and remembering things requires extra effort as well. So can we get back to the slides at this point? Oh,
Yeah. Let me go back. Give me 1 second. I'll get it back up.
Expectations for outcome. Oh, I can probably get it.
No, I got it. I think I've got it. There you go.
Wow, great. Okay. So there's two different things in rehab we spend a lot of time talking about, one of which is impairment, the other of which is disability. Impairment is when you lose a particular ability. Disability is when you're able to live your life, if you can't live your life anyway. So you might lose a particular ability, like being able to remember stuff, but if you learn how to write it down, you can still function and do what you need. Let's talk about impairment first. After you start on chemo, the research suggests that compared to your own baseline, there are some areas where you are in fact taking a hit. It's not just your imagination, this is for real. Your attention drops, your executive function drops, your ability to keep images in your head gets worse, depression may get worse. But here's the good news. 6 months after chemo is done, some of these things start to come back. People's motor function starts to improve. Their visual memory, their ability to remember things they've seen, some of their language abilities start to improve. The next thing that I want to point out is that there's a difference between how things that you've lost compared to your own baseline, where you used to be yourself, versus areas in which you may be different than the general population. Some people who are already doing a little bit better than other folks, they're smarter than the average bear, which my kids don't understand at all, but if they're smarter than the average bear before they start on chemo, then they might take a hit and still be in roughly the same shape as everyone else who's out there. Other people will not see you're having any problems at all, because they might not have known you before. If they knew you, they might see that you're not at 100%, but they'll say you're still doing better than those guys are. So your difference between where you are relative to your own baseline and where you are compared to the rest of the world is important, because then it gets into your self-perception versus how other people perceive you. The deficits where you take a loss are obvious to you, and they're important. They bother you, especially if you're someone who takes pride in what you're able to think and do. Others may not notice much difference at all, especially if you're just in the same boat as everyone else. You might feel like it's obvious. You might feel like it's written across the front of your face that I'm having problems right now. Other people might not notice. You may actually be keeping up compared to the general population much better than what you think. But that's related to impairment. Those are when the actual loss of the abilities. Once you start using strategies, even if your abilities are still below what they used to be, you can still do most of the things you used to do. You can still keep a schedule as long as you're now using one of those apps that Laura was telling you about. You can still communicate to people. It might take a little bit more work. There might be word finding problems. You might need to apply the principles of total communication that you mentioned, but you will be able to communicate. The other thing is that when you have, some of you, I don't know if anyone has any experiences they want to share when we get to the Q&A, but after you have your diagnosis and after you start struggling with some of the effects of the treatment, that's when your crew really circles back and supports you. That's when you start to see the way that your community is really there for you. And sometimes because there are other people who are supporting you, you're able to continue to do the things you want to do. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit. Oh, there we go. Next slide. Psychologists are a gloomy bunch. We spent about 100 years studying what's wrong with people. It's only in the past 20 years that we started trying to figure out, you know, maybe we should stop focusing on what's wrong with people and start trying to learn about healthy people. And when healthy people are functioning, the people who have faced tough things, like cancer and the road back, and then still come out pretty good, maybe we should learn from them. So there's been this whole field of positive psychology where we've studied resilient people and we've tried to learn from them. We find that there's optimists and pessimists. Some of us are born optimists. Optimists see problems as temporary. It's just, they see them as local. There's just one thing that's wrong. Everything's not broke. They don't tend to blame themselves when things go wrong and say, you know, it's not my fault. It's stupid illness. Someone who's a pessimist sees problems as permanent. I'm never going to be able to get back to doing what I used to do. This is something a pessimist would say. Pervasive, everything's broke. I can't do anything right anymore. Their problems are personal. It's like, what's wrong with me that I'm having all these problems? It's not happening to other people. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about explanatory style is I want to challenge. I don't know if any of you guys are pessimists. Maybe you're all optimists already, in which case, God bless you. For those of us who actually are trying to learn how to be optimists, we have to constantly be rechecking our perception on things. Based on those slides that Ashley just helped us go over, you can see that if you're experiencing these problems, you're not alone. It's not just you. It's everybody who's out there who's been through what you're going through, has had some similar experiences to what you're going. It's not your fault. It's the situation that you're struggling with, which is the same situation other people are dealing with. So I want you, if you ever start to say, what's wrong with me? These other people don't have that problem. They seem to be doing just great. I want you to remember those pie charts, right? The pie charts, how many slices of pie were there where people were saying, not at all, I don't even know what you're talking about? Not very many. It was a pretty slim slice of pie. Moving on to the next one. Oh, wait, resilient thinking. Okay, yeah, so here we go. All right. So one of the things that a psychologist, if you start seeing a psychotherapist who's trying to support your efforts, teaching you to be an optimist, learn the optimism is what psychologists are trying to do right now. They can teach you how to see your problems as temporary. Well, I just talked to you about how the research shows some things do get better. Motor functions get better after you start chemo. Visual memory gets better. Language abilities get better. You did take a hit at first, but they do improve with time. Research shows that. The other thing that I think is helpful to know, and some of you guys may already be veterans. Some of you guys may be, when I say veterans, I mean you've been in recovering for a long time. There's other people who are in the hospital right now or just on their way out who are rookie survivors. The rookies need veterans because you guys know where they're going to land. They don't know. They're in this place right now where they feel like, I can't possibly imagine that there's anything that's worthwhile. I've lost so much, and after losing the things that I've lost, what can I do? What can I really look forward to? They don't know. They might think there's nothing to look forward to. You guys who've been around for a little while, the veteran survivors, know there are some things that eventually you got back, and still things that you got to enjoy. And when you're talking to the rookies, it's going to be an important thing to tell them that many of the issues they thought were permanent actually were temporary, are going to be temporary. Problems can be viewed as local. There's still some, for everything that's gone wrong on our list of abilities that we put up there that you can't do quite as well, there might be 2 or 3 other things that you're still good at. For those of you who have ever worked with me and done testing, you'll know that I spend just about all of my time in the feedback session talking about things you're still good at. Because although I'll confirm, yeah, there's some issues that you're having problems with, but you knew that already, didn't you? I'm here to tell you about the things you didn't know. You're still really good at being able to tell a story. You're still really good at being able to express yourself. There's all these different things that might still be present that you don't even really recognize. Sometimes it's helpful to call those things out, to name them. Find the things you're still good at. Here's another one that I think is interesting. Even when I'm not at my best, and even if I don't have the things that I want, I don't have the abilities that I want, my life is still good because of this. For many of my patients, it's grandchildren. I'm still looking forward to my first. You guys already have something that still makes them feel like life is good. There's a really interesting exercise, and when I'm digressing, and we're over time already, but I'm going to tell it anyway. There's a research that was done where they took some people who were depressed pessimists. They gave them an exercise. They said at the end of every day, you got to do this before you go to sleep. You got to look back on your day and find 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that went well, 3 things that make you feel good right now. And if you can't think of them, you got to stay up until you come up with them. And you write them down. You find who are the people that were involved. Do that every day for 2 weeks. And they found that people who were depressed, it made a huge difference. It doesn't sound like much, but when you start training yourself to look for the good stuff that's around you, and to make a mental note of it, and to hold on to it, and to think about it, and process it, and make associations with it, like what Laura was saying, it changes your life. What was really interesting about this research that I read about is it didn't just change your life for a few days. It made a permanent change. Just doing that every night for 2 weeks, 3 things you're thankful for, can change the way that you look at things for a long time. So problems are local, finding the things that are still good. Problems that aren't my fault, don't blame yourself. It's not that you are somehow uniquely cursed and suffering things that no one else is having. And it's not because you did something wrong. It's not that you should have been doing things differently. This happens to a lot of people. Remember the pie charts. How many people had the slice of pie that says there's nothing wrong at all? Nobody gets that pie. Chemo brain isn't my fault. Last thing I wanted to say, as I said earlier, rookies that are out there need to know veterans. If you're already a veteran, find a rookie. Coach them through this. I want people who are in the early stages of recovery to recognize there are good things to look forward to. They need to be able to imagine those good things. What I found is at some point when people are in the first stages of recovery and they're feeling depressed and overwhelmed and discouraged, it's a failure of imagination. They've never met someone like you guys who actually have survived and thrived. They don't know resilient people. If they can find those resilient people and recognize them, then they get hope themselves. Some strategies work better for some people than others. Laura gave you a truckload of strategies today, and you're going to find as you experiment with them and you tweak them and you see what works for your unique situation, some of them are going to be great. Some of them maybe not, but you can let go of those and you keep using the ones that work. The veterans who've been around a little while and have been working on things, they find out what works. They know that their community comes around to support them. They know the kinds of places like Living Well, where there's other people who've had similar experiences to you and who can share stories back and forth. Some people, as I said earlier, they can't imagine what a good outcome looks like. They don't know what it looks like to thrive. They don't understand what resilience and what a good life is going to be. Just because it's different, they can't understand it. They can't really picture it in their head. Someone who's actually been through it knows that the good things that you're experiencing right now are different than the good things than what you may have thought were the only good things you could have when you were first in the hospital. So the ultimate thing that I want to do is to leave you with the sense that there is hope for the future, and that after doing this work, I was telling Ashley earlier, 29 years now, 8 years at Marianjoy, a long time before that. I started work when I was 10.
I know, you look
So
great.
I'm not really 60. No, it's been a long time. And what I found as I've been doing this career is that people are tougher than you think. People just keep coming back and they keep getting better, even when they weren't expecting themselves to. And I think you guys can share that with other people, that they can have some expectation of good things that are happening in the future. We thought you guys might be interested in actually doing some of the exercises that Laura mentioned. There are some special providers that are out there. When you get these slides, you'll have their phone numbers if you want to hook up with them and do some of these special training programs that are supposed to help people. There's additional, there are no questions. We've answered everything. After questions, I think there's another page that has other things to read about. There's one brochure that I found I thought was pretty cool. This one here, the cancer-related brain fog, out of University of something that starts with H. I think it's up in Canada somewhere. Halifax, maybe? I don't know. UHM. It's a great brochure. It summarizes a lot of the things we talked about today, makes it an understandable language, provides a lot of additional links to the scientific literature if you want to find out about it. The next slide actually has, that's the one article that we found that is very, very helpful. It has this stuff by Barbara Ehrlich that I was mentioning earlier. It talks a little bit about what's happening on a molecular or physiology level. If you get these slides, click on that link. That'll take you to the brain fog questionnaire that I mentioned to you earlier. There's also a couple of books that are that use some of the same information we've been talking about today that I think you guys might find helpful if you want to do further reading. Now, you can take some extra